On this week's dashboard, we talk about the Xbox Series X being hot, but nowhere near as hot as the rumors said, as well as the deal between GameStop and Microsoft goes a lot deeper than we originally thought. All that and more coming up. What is going on, guys? I am Don't Give It over at My Xbox and Me, where we give you the rundown on everything related to the Xbox ecosystem. So if you like that, be sure to subscribe, that way you can stay informed each and every week. Now hopping right into the first story. In a recent interview with Kotaku, Phil Spencer was asked about Bethesda titles and specifically where he sees future titles landing outside of the Xbox ecosystem. And it was during this same interview that Phil Spencer stated that Bethesda titles do not need to land on any platform outside of the Xbox ecosystem in order to recoup that $7.5 billion spent. Now, what does this mean exactly? For one, it means that Phil Spencer is more than likely planning to leverage that acquisition, those IPs, in order to bolster the Xbox brand as a whole. Two, ongoing titles like Fallout 76 and Elder Scrolls Online more than likely won't be affected by this. There's no reason to steal that from players, because in the same interview, Phil Spencer stated, "Our goal is to increase the amount of players who have access to these games, not decrease it." Now, of course, being a huge Xbox fan myself, I'm not too bothered by this, but I do know that for a lot of players, this is going to affect them greatly. Bethesda is known for their fantastic RPGs, and to have that sided with the opposition, it kind of stings. However, if you are in the Xbox ecosystem, this only bolsters the brand for it, so good things to come from this. These previous weeks, we had heard non-stop rumors about the Xbox Series X being a furnace in your household, being able to actually heat your house, and now we know that is completely false. Over at Windows Central, they did a beautiful breakdown on how the Xbox Series X doesn't even get hotter than the Xbox One X. In fact, it actually stayed pretty cool. They actually had thermal imaging showing where the heat was being dispersed and how hot it actually got. And even while running Monster Hunter at its highest performing frame rate, it still didn't get that hot. It never once surpassed the Xbox One X. This just goes to show you that right now, everybody's looking for a reason to beat down on their competitor. Xbox fans are doing the same thing to Sony fans doing it back over to Xbox fans. But now we understand why those coded Twitter messages were going out saying, hey, we can't talk about it because of embargo, but we promise that the Xbox Series X isn't putting out that much heat. So it's nice to know that the entire reason for Xbox building their tower-like structure for the Series X is actually paying off in its dispersion of heat, keeping the console quiet and cool, because no one likes a hot household when playing their games. Now, moving right into the second story, it looks like that original deal between GameStop and Microsoft actually goes a little bit deeper than we originally thought. In a recent report, we're actually finding out that Microsoft is going to be giving a portion of digital sales to GameStop. Now, of course, we don't know what the percentage is on that sales. We'll have to wait for their monthly earning reports in order to find out that information. But the fact that GameStop's actually included in that digital sales is kind of a big deal, simply because now digital purchases actually go towards benefiting GameStop. Now, the real question is, what's the reason Xbox is doing this? Could it be because GameStop has no real incentive to sell the Xbox Series X? Think about it. It's an all-digital console that they're not going to make any profit off of their sales, and they can't resell the games for. So GameStop really has no reason to push that console. Sure, they'll get that one purchase, but after that, it's done. Compared to if they push the Series X, people can buy the physical disc, resell the disc, trade in disc, keeping GameStop afloat. But now, with GameStop getting a portion of those digital sales from Xbox, they actually have a reason to push the Series S. If every purchase you make on it, they get a portion of it, that only helps them. The other thing to think about here is, does this shift the power into the hands of Microsoft? Does GameStop now have a reason to push Microsoft over Sony? And is that a bad thing for competition? Now, I really don't think that's going to be a big deal in the end. There's other retailers that don't have this same agreement. You can just buy hardware anywhere else, and the other retailers aren't going to prefer one console versus the other, so I don't think it's a big deal. But I do think it's a big deal for Microsoft, especially since they closed down all their retail stores earlier this year, and now GameStop can act as that front for their retail stores, and they're pushing Microsoft products, so it only makes sense when you really think about it. Now, going into the next story, your beautiful browser Bing is back, baby, on the Xbox Series X. The Xbox Series X now has an updated Bing browser built right into the console, and apparently it's pretty good. being able to search things up just like you would in any other search engine, but also being able to look up wallpapers and applying them directly to your console. You can even do that for GIFs or GIFs or however you want to pronounce it. I'm not gonna fight that battle right now. But that's pretty cool. On top of that, it actually shows the games that you were recently playing in case you want to quickly search up something related to those game titles. All of that is cool integration and just shows the future moving of Microsoft and the Xbox Series X platform. Once again, just going into one convenient factor that just makes the entire console just fun and enjoyable. The reason why we love consoles, just forward moving. That's what we want. And lastly, we finally got our first real look at next-gen gameplay when it comes to the Xbox Series X. Dirt 5 is actually in the hands of a lot of influencers, and they've been posting those screenshots, those gameplays, those videos, those reviews. Not really reviews, previews I should say, everywhere. But what's even more impressive is the 120 refresh rate that's available in the game. Now, of course, most modern TVs aren't going to be outputting that, so it's hard to display, but just knowing that this is actually in the game and it's kind of future-proofing itself for next generation of TVs, that's kind of impressive. Actually, that's really impressive. Not only that, but the game has multiple different modes that we've been talking about, the 4K mode, the frame rate mode, and refresh mode. You just have different options available to you, and none of them look like they're really sacrificing too many resources in order to switch between itself. I'm not really a big fan of racers myself, but I feel like I need to have this game just so that I can play it and just watch how beautiful it is. So that's really everything for this week's video. If you did enjoy it, be sure to hit the like button as well as subscribe so that way you can stay tuned for future videos. Now I really need to find a good sign-off saying, so I'm gonna work on that. If you have a good suggestion, go ahead and drop that in the comments below because I need a good sign-off. Until next time. That's terrible. I'm not gonna point at the camera. No.